1 Kings chapter 9, picking up in verse 1. We're going to read the first 9 verses. So let's go through this and we'll kind of back up and consider it as it would pertain to us. So chapter 9, verse 1 says, "It came to pass, when Solomon had finished building the house of the Lord and the king's house, and all Solomon's desires which he wanted to do, that the Lord appeared to Solomon the second time. And as he appeared to him at Gibeon, the Lord said to him, I have heard your prayer and your supplication that you have made before me. I've consecrated this house which you've built to me, and put my name there, and my eyes and my heart will be there perpetually. Now in verse 4, if you walk before me as your father David walked, in integrity of heart and in uprightness, to do according to all that I have commanded you, and if you keep my statutes and my judgments, then I will establish the throne of your kingdom over Israel forever, as I promised David your father, saying, you shall not fail to have a man on the throne of Israel. But if you or your sons at all turn from following me, and do not keep my commandments and my statutes which I have set before you, but you go and serve other gods and worship them, then I will cut off Israel from the land which I have given them, and this house which I have consecrated. For my name I will cast out of my sight. Israel will be a proverb and a byword among all people. And in verse 8, as for this house which is exalted, everyone who passes by it will be astonished and will hiss and say, why has the Lord done this to this land and to this house? And then they will answer, because they forsook the Lord their God, who brought their fathers out of the land of Egypt, and have embraced other gods and worshipped them and served them. Therefore the Lord has brought all this calamity on them. So it's a lot to consider this evening, but first of all, we just remind ourselves here in chapter 8, Solomon had finished building the temple, and now he's consecrated it to the Lord in a just powerful time of prayer and sacrifice and worship that we saw as God poured out his presence and met with them there. It was truly incredible. And so you could summarize that by saying chapter 8, as Solomon prays, it's Solomon speaks to God in chapter 8. In chapter 9, God speaks to Solomon. What is interesting, many years have gone by since Solomon prayed those amazing prayers over the temple, and God filled the temple in that moment. And it's interesting that years later now, God comes to Solomon and says, hey, I've heard your prayer. And the obvious idea is, based on everything that God's done for them, sure, God's heard their prayer. But now he's specifically saying to Solomon, I've heard your prayer. I've consecrated this house. And it's a wild thing for God to say, hey, listen, this house, and as amazing as it's been, if you turn from me, I will destroy this place. And God is very much willing and interested in our sacrifice and God's people rallying together like they have and building a place of worship. But he says, if you abandon me, and the thing that's behind all of this, a building don't mean a whole lot to me. I'll wipe this thing out. I'll tear it all down. It doesn't matter to me. Because I care about your hearts, is what he's saying to Solomon and the people there. But some interesting things to really consider as we go through this a little bit, piece by piece. Verse 1, it said that when Solomon had finished building this house of the Lord and his own house, and remember, it took him twice as long to build his own house, sad statement. It says, and all Solomon's desire which he wanted to do. That's a scary moment for a person to come to when they've achieved that which they thought would deliver the most. Once someone has achieved that which they thought would deliver the most, they are sadly confronted with the reality that it doesn't deliver what they were hoping it would. So many stories that we could talk about. A famous surfer in the 80s, Joey Baran, has an incredible story. I mean, there's so many of them, it's like, which one do you pick? But Joey Baran won this surf competition, which was like his dream, his ideal. He said he won it, and within a matter of minutes of getting, all the garb and all the stuff and all the praise, within minutes he said the beach cleared out and everyone was gone. And he found himself in that moment wanting this so bad for so many years, and he got it, and he was completely empty after that. Stood there and thought, that's what it was all about, was for that, and it's over and it's gone. Again, endless examples we could look to. But at the end of the day, people talk about success and the top and achievement, and that when you get there, when you finally accomplish that which you set out for, a man is confronted with the fact that it doesn't deliver what he was hoping it would, ever. Sadly, ever does it live up to that. And even Tom Brady, when he had 3 Super Bowl rings, he went on to win 4 more. But this kind of like gone by the way interview was after 3 Super Bowl rings in an interview where the interviewer was just fawning over his accomplishments and his accolades and who he was as a man. Tom Brady looked depressed and he said, honestly, man, I want more. I wish there were more. Like after 3 Super Bowl rings, and he went on to continue to tick off more Super Bowl rings, but I think Tom Brady would admit to us that another Super Bowl ring never really does it. Because if you listen to those guys, they always talk about, well, the next one's what's important, the next one, the next one, the next one. Well, why not the ones you have? Why can't you be content with that? And isn't it interesting when you give your life to the next one, men like Tom Brady, as successful as they are, can't keep a marriage together because they want the next one, the next one, the next one. It's a real statement on humanity, but listen, I say that because look at verse 1. So all of Solomon's desires have been met. In fact, the Hebrew implies the desire that a bridegroom has for his bride. And you know how that is, right? It just, unfortunately, the erotic love between a couple doesn't carry on for decades, does it? Often. That initial, just overwhelming, unbelievable, can't breathe when they walk in the room, you just kind of, yeah. Maybe there's like 1 or 2 people in the whole world, but that just goes on and on and on. No, because the truth is there's something that carries a marriage far more than those simple desires anyway, right? Of course. But the implication is that bridegroom waiting for his bride, longing for that day, and in a culture where they had to wait to express themselves sexually, you could imagine how much a bridegroom would want his bride and desiring and chasing after and pursuing and caring and investing. And it's like that's what Solomon was after. And this is an interesting thing. He had pursued so many things in building the house and building for the Lord and building his own house. Now he's got it all. And that's a scary moment. Even Alexander the Great, 30 years old, conquered the world. And his statement was, I wish there was more to conquer. You've conquered the world. What do you mean? Wish there was more to conquer? What do you do after that? I've conquered the world. Well, I wish there were more world to conquer. That's a strange thing to say. But I say that only to simply say, this is a crucial moment for Solomon, and any one of us can have this crucial moment as well. And guys, I don't need to sit here and play the Holy Spirit and define for you what your crucial moment is. But for some people, it is actually marriage. Getting a car, getting a certain job, getting a promotion. And it's like that crucial moment, when it comes, well, it can be a huge letdown. It can be a huge moment of trial and temptation. And we often think fighting for a thing is so difficult. But here's the reality. It's really not difficult to seek the Lord when things are difficult. But it is difficult to seek the Lord when things are going really well. And things are going really well for Solomon. By every metric, and we're going to see this in chapter 10, the Queen of Sheba will come up and she'll be like, I heard all this stuff about you. You are way more amazing than I even thought or could have imagined. I thought the people were kind of over-talking you a little bit. And then I come and see you and I hear you and I see all that you have and I'm like, whoa. So everything's going really good for Solomon. But it's really hard to seek the Lord when things are going really good, right? When everything's against you and you don't have X amount of this or that, you can't do a certain thing you want to do so desperately. Oh man, it's so easy to seek the Lord. Oh God, help us. When things are going awesome, well, that's where Solomon's at right now. Solomon has achieved so much, and it just says it right here for us. All of his desires which he wanted to do. He has scratched every itch he could have possibly had in his drive as a man. That also sets us up to look at what we read already. It says that the Lord appears to him again at Gibeon. Now, this is a second appearance of the Lord to Solomon specifically. And the first one was when he was a young king in Israel. And you remember God approached him and said, hey, Solomon, what do you want, man? And I'll give you anything. And then he says, well, just give me wisdom to rule over your people. And he said, well, Solomon, because you didn't ask for money and power and this and that, he said, I'm going to give all that to you and the wisdom that you need, that you've asked for. But remember, that happened to a young Solomon when he's like 17 to 19 years old. We're not exactly sure. Let's call it 19 years old for easy numbers here. So essentially, almost the same amount of time of life later, the Lord revisits him again, midlife. He's 38 years old. So he was, let's call it 19 years old when he first appears to him. What do you want? I need wisdom. 19 years later, the amount of life that he had lived at that point, again, the Lord comes to him. Those of you that are like a little under 40 and over, did you learn a lot from the time you were 19 to 40? Not really. No, that doesn't really happen. Of course it does. It's unbelievable. It's like you finally figure it out at the end. You're like, well, I don't have any road left. I'm at the end of the road. But you figured it all out, and then boom, it's over. It's frustrating, right? Like the longer you go on, the more you learn. We always joke about, man, if you could go back and tell your high school self like what to do, wouldn't it be so different? You know so much more. You've lived through so much. You've experienced so many things. From 19 to 38. And it not only is it an important moment in Solomon's life, it's like his life has played out. He's midlife now. He's lived enough life where he is different. He would think of things different. He's seen things differently. He's accomplished certain things. And now the Lord comes to him. And Gibeon is the same exact place where the Lord met him 19 years earlier. So it's not just by like happenstance. It's very orchestrated by the Lord. It's at the right moment, at the right time in his life. And again, I say this from time to time. I say it again tonight. If there is a place for you that you could visit that has a spiritual significance to you, and it's in proximity to where you are now, I would encourage you, even if it's a couple-hour drive, it's worth going there and just laying eyes on that place. When my wife and I go to Machias, where we first had our first apartment together, after we were married, of course. We go up there and we will take a little side road, Marshfield Flats Road, and there's our first little apartment, little tiny one-bedroom apartment unit, and it's just, wow. You just like, that's one of many of those little places that we sat and had our life and started our life as a family together, and just like, wow, man, amazing moments. There's something about going to a place that's familiar to you, but you go back mature, right? And you go back seasoned and more educated and like, what were we thinking, you know? What were we doing with it? What are we, crazy, you know? Not that we think that. You would think something like that. No. But no, it's wild. But you know, there's this wonderful part of youth and ignorance in youth, and I mean that in the truest, good, best sense, is that when you get older, you get too cautious, don't you? We got to protect and worry and scavenge. And when you're young, you're like, yeah, let's go for it. You know, like there's something awesome about being naive and crazy and just going for something. But that's when you look back and you're like, well, I probably would have advised them to have a savings account or something like that. You know, that would have helped them a lot, actually. And if they could have handled a credit card responsibly, they could have taken one out instead of just living off from cash or whatever. You could have helped them or whatever. But now he is 38 years old, give or take, and the Lord appears to him again, and he says something that he has reiterated over and over and over again. Walk in my ways as your father David did. And again, I've often said that God is a good counselor. He doesn't always change the counsel to fit the person that doesn't like the counsel, right? He's not going to be like, oh, you didn't try what I asked you to do last time? Well, try this, try this, try this, try this, and see what sticks and what fits. The Lord keeps saying the same truth over and over and over to Solomon. It's not, the message isn't weak and needs tweaking. It's like, this is what you need to do, Solomon. And again, I'm going to remind you, it's almost annoying to say it, this is a crucial moment in Solomon's life. Because Solomon is going to take a turn for the worse that we'll see in the weeks to come. But this is a serious warning from God in verse 4. If you walk in my ways, if you keep my statutes and so on. We just read this, right? Now, something about the warnings from the Lord I think is so important. So just a couple notes. If you're taking notes, I'm going to share these with you. One, the Lord faithfully warns his people. That would be, I hope, you and I. He faithfully warns. And he's not sadistic. He's not weird. He's not, I warned you once and I can't wait for you to fumble. God's not so interested in I told you so. It's preventative. He warns us. He's not sadistic. He's not disattached. He is very involved and he faithfully warns his people. Secondly, God doesn't warn, here it is, unnecessarily. God's not like wasting his breath or like just trying to fill in the gap. Well, what do they need? We do that, right? We do that with people. We make stuff up and think it's helpful or whatever. God doesn't warn unnecessarily. Like sometimes we just try to guess at what people need help with. We're like, hey, be careful of this or watch out for that. Oh, that's weird. You're just making something up. But God doesn't warn unnecessarily. And check it. Listen, as Solomon hears this, you know what he's probably thinking? Best we can tell. God, what are you talking about? This is the best time of my life. I would never walk away from you. I would never do that. No way, Lord. No way. But do you think God warns unnecessarily? You know what's really wild? And we'll talk about this more in a moment. That the very things that God is warning him of are the very things he'll end up going to do. But God warned him. Isn't it mind-boggling to think about? It wasn't like God was like, well, just be careful. He's saying, Solomon, you have great potential to do this, to walk away, to do the wrong thing. So God, one, faithfully warns. Two, he doesn't warn unnecessarily. And three, a quote from Chuck Smith is, he said, I have never failed, but that God first warned me. And that took a while to sink into my mind when I first heard that. I have never failed, but that God first warned me. And I didn't actually agree with it at first. I thought, no, that's not right. And then I thought about my own life. I thought, wow. And I tried to go back in certain nights that were a wreck for me, the nights that I ruined my life or did something way too far off the edge like crazy and wish I could take it back. And I thought, wow. I remember the Lord set up like 6 roadblocks. And I had to jump over them, break through concrete walls. And then I look back on it initially and say, well, God never warned me. Remember the broken skull from the concrete wall? Oh, that's what that was. Yeah, like God trying to stop you, warning you, don't do it. Red light, caution, road ends. It's like, wah, wah. I wish someone would warn me. It's like, well, the signs that you were reading on the side of the road, that they were warning you. And we say, well, God, I've had people argue that point. Well, no. There's certain times God never warned me. Think about it, friends. Stop and think about your life for a moment. And the stuff that you did. Sometimes it's the person someone marries. You mean to tell me God didn't warn you? God blew you right into that relationship. It was a massive disaster, but he never warned you? Oh, that's right. Your mom and your uncle and your friends and your cousins that were like, don't marry that person. God never warned you? Look, man, I'm willing to admit as a person that I can think back over my life and God faithfully warned me. And he put roadblocks in the way. And this is no different for Solomon. He's not wasting his breath. He's not saying something unnecessarily. He is saying something that is very pertinent to Solomon. Something very pertinent to him. Now let's look at this for a moment. Verse 4, as your father David walked in integrity. Now here's something cool about that. Number one, awesome weight off the shoulders in one sense. Because David, remember, like everyone likes to argue, a man after God's own heart who committed adultery and murder? Yeah, that David. And it's like David is dead and gone. And do you think that God could have picked a better example for Solomon? Like, your dad was kind of a shady character. So why don't you be more like Abraham or Moses or, here's a better one, Joseph. Be like Joseph, who we read nothing wrong of in the Bible. Do you know that? He didn't do anything wrong. If you want to argue the point that he told his brother the dream like an idiot, that's about it. But that ain't something innately wrong. So, okay, be like Joseph, my servant of old. No. Be like your father, David. You want me to commit adultery and murder people? No, that's just the point though, isn't it? Your father wasn't a perfect man. I'm not asking you to be perfect, Solomon. Your father was an imperfect man, but there's something he did do perfectly. Wasn't a perfect man, but you know what he did perfectly? It says that he walked in integrity of heart. What does that mean? Obviously, he didn't have integrity in his marriage. He didn't have integrity with his friends, but he had integrity in his relationship to God. And that was this, that you will read nowhere in David's life that he worshiped other gods. And that's what he's saying. That's the warning for Solomon. Solomon, your father never entertained it. In all of the lows and all of the crazy moments of David's life, he never took on other gods. He never had false gods, right? It's very important. But Solomon, well, as we're going to read in chapter 11, that's not the case. He's going to marry all these women, and they're going to lead his heart astray, and he's going to worship their false gods. He says, and he specifically says, do not go and serve other gods and worship them. The second commandment, right? Well, the first commandment is no other gods. No other gods. So by the way, quick time out. I haven't told you guys this. I'm so pumped. Maybe I did tell you this. I don't know. I'm losing my mind. I'm almost midlife. Anyway, I'm teaching the co-op, our Bible 101. I'm teaching them the 10 Commandments. Did I tell you this or not? I can't. Oh, I did tell you. That's scary. In my mind, I didn't tell you. Does that make sense? Okay. I told you. Anyway, it's super fun because I'm teaching them to do it with their fingers. Did I tell you that? Okay, thank God. Okay. That's the part I wanted to tell you. Okay. I'm teaching them to remember the 10 Commandments with their 10 fingers. And it's awesome because I start the class by saying, guys, if you don't know the 10 Commandments at all right now, you can leave this class in a matter of a few minutes and know all 10 Commandments with your fingers. You want to learn tonight, class? No, I'm just kidding. First commandment, number 1, only one God, no other gods before me. Number 2, you have to do on the other hand. You don't bow down. Look at some of our classes do. Hi, class. Second commandment, you don't bow down to false gods. Number 3, looks like a W. Watch your words. Do not take the Lord's name in vain. You guys are all getting this, right? I'm moving quick because it's not part of the study at all. 4 is like a pillow, honor the Sabbath. Those first 4 relate to God, our relationship with God. The 5th commandment changes. It's in our relationship with people. The 5th commandment is you honor your father and mother like a salute. Or in if you wanted to learn a little sign language, father or mother, right? Honor your father and mother, or you'll get a spanking, we tell the kids. So, and I say even if you are 16 years old, okay? The 6th commandment is like a knife, thou shalt not murder, right? 7th commandment, do not commit adultery, because there's 2 people in a marriage, not 5. You like this? This is so fun. I know, it doesn't get old for me. The 8th commandment, notice the thumbs, do not steal, because in some countries they'll still cut your thumbs off if you do. I did not come up with that, but I would have probably come up with something like that. 9, do not bear false witness. There are 9 Supreme Court justices in the land, and 4 is not 5, and 5 is not 4. So do not bear false witness. And number 10 is don't be a weirdo with your binoculars and look in your neighbor's yard and covet anything of your neighbor's, right? Okay, pretty cool. Wow, thank you. Pretty cool. All right, that's a wrap. But here's the thing. Yeah, no, Joe. Listen to the audio. But here's the thing. I share that with you because when you memorize those 10 Commandments and you memorize them and you know them like that in your heart, because maybe you're sitting here tonight and when I said that, you're like, I don't know the 10 Commandments. What's the first one, third one, fourth one? I don't know. Listen, when you know them and you have them in your heart like that, it is amazing how relevant they are. Tomorrow I have an opportunity to do a podcast, and the question is over abortion. And guess what the 6th commandment is? Do not murder. Right? How do I answer a question about abortion? Oh, that's right, like God's law said it a long time ago, right? But when it's in your heart, when you know the 10 Commandments like that, listen, why I'm saying that is, these people that were Israelites, they didn't have to stretch far in the imagination to understand what God wanted. What is he telling Solomon? Solomon, no other gods, don't bow down to other idols. First and second commandment. This is so simple, Solomon. And it's like, Lord, I don't need a history lesson. Well, yeah, you do, because that's exactly what you're going to go off and do. It's so bad. We're not going to be able to get there tonight. In 1 Kings chapter 11, some of the foreign gods that Solomon will follow after is Chemosh. He was the god that desired child sacrifice. So the fact that Solomon is part of child sacrifice. Speaking of abortion, no doubt out of all of his wives and princesses and concubines, he had some children, maybe let's call them unwanted children, that he sacrificed to Chemosh. And if he himself didn't do it, which is highly probable, obviously, then he solicited and set up worship for that to happen in Israel. It's so relevant. When you go to Jerusalem today, there are 3 main valleys. One of them is the valley of Ben Hinnom, the Hinnom Valley. It's also known as the Children's Valley because so many kids were slaughtered there to the god of Chemosh. And this is what Solomon will go on to do. So let me say again, God doesn't warn us like arbitrarily, right? God's not like, well, you might maybe think about this because it might be relevant. No. Solomon, here's what you need to know. That you cannot serve other gods and worship other gods. Because if you do, I will cut you off from the land. It's just so sad. There is just no end just to how sinful and wicked a person can be when they disobey God like this. And that's for every one of us, of course. But let me say this before we move on, finish the chapter out. How do we end up in big messes? How do we end up sacrificing our children to Chemosh in the Children's Valley of Hinnom? Well, it's not like you go to bed one night and you love, that church service was incredible. And then the next morning you're like, I think I want to kill one of my kids. Doesn't happen that way, does it? How do you go from 0 to 100? But by ramping it up, right? And we make massive mistakes by small decisions all the time. That's what it is. You end up in the big, massive decision in the end because of the small ones you made along the journey. The best, most relevant one that I can think of right now, and I don't know why it's best and relevant, but it is right now in my head, is losing weight. That's too close to home for all of us, isn't it? No, but everyone wants to lose a little bit of weight, right? And so how do you lose weight, though? I'll tell you what. The best way I've heard it described is like building a wall. If you want to lose weight, guess how you do it? 1 brick at a time. So today you ate all 3 healthy meals and you did a little workout. So you put 2 bricks on the wall. You had a caloric deficit. Maybe that's 3 bricks. But here's what happens. If you have you're trying to lose weight and you put 2 bricks on the wall today and then you take 4 bricks off tomorrow, you ain't gotten any further ahead, have you? But that's the deception about weight loss. Because what we don't do is we don't go to bed and in the morning we're like, man, I'm going to run 100 miles and bench press until my arms fall off and I'm going to be jacked tomorrow. But isn't that, look, man, I can't tell you how many times with a guy in the gym, like chicken arms, first day in the gym, he like pumps, he's like, check those out. Nothing has happened, dude. You've torn that tiny muscle and it's going to take a long time to heal and keep tearing before that thing grows. But we love to think, man, I lifted and checked me out. And it's like anything. You had 20 years of bad decisions. It's probably going to take you at least a couple years to make this thing right. Right? So how do we get in the big end results? Small decisions. The process, right? One little thing at a time. One little decision. One marriage that shouldn't have happened with Solomon. One altar. One pagan idol. One small thing in the home. All right. Hey, honey. Solly. I don't know what they call him, right? Solomon. I know that you love the Lord and we built him a house, but in Egypt, we light these candles for our gods. And it's kind of romantic or something. And he's like, oh, that's kind of cool. Oh, it's just a candle in the bedroom and then some incense. And we're not going crazy. We're not making all of Israel worship. We're just having a little side thing. We're just doing a little thing over here. Small decisions. And then you're slaughtering your kids in the valley of Hinnom. Right? Look, when I say that Solomon's warnings to us are great, they are truly incredible to think about. So God's warning, no small thing. Let's pick up in verse 10. Now it happened at the end of 20 years, when Solomon had built the 2 houses, the house for the Lord and the king's house, Hiram, the king of Tyre, had supplied Solomon with cedar, cypress, and gold, and as much as he desired. And so King Solomon then gave Hiram 20 cities in the land of Galilee. These are like tribal areas. And so in verse 12, Hiram went to Tyre to see the cities which Solomon had given him, but they did not please him. So he said, "What kind of cities are these which you've given me, my brother?" And he called them to the land of Kabul. That's like saying, these are trash. Hey, what'd you name that place I gave you? Trash is what I named it, Kabul. And they are to this day. In verse 14, Hiram sent the king 120 talents of gold. Now, this is awesome. We read about this relationship early on, Hiram's relationship with David, which translated to Solomon, and they start working together. And now it's like payday, right? Like they've made unofficial agreements. They've like we're brothers, man. That's why I say brother. You know, we're business bros or whatever you want to call it. And so payday comes, and Solomon does something that I can't wait to dig into this for just a moment. But Solomon does something where, hey man, I'm going to give you 20 cities, and he is so jacked. And he knows Solomon is a man of wealth and power. He's like, Solomon gave me some serious land. So he goes to check it out, and he's like, what is this garbage? This is a man who has coastal lands, and I figured if he gave me some land, there'd be some awesome beach frontage or something. This is trash, man. And then still, Hiram turns around and gives him the modern equivalent of $366 million. He's like, thanks for the trash, bro. It's like, what is going on there? Why would Hiram, after seeing the trash, still give him $366 million? Well, see, it's all in jest. It's a gift. And if you read the language, it says, what kind of cities have you given to me? And he sent to Solomon. This is a gift exchange. Understand this. There's no contract. There's no agreement on how much. It's just it's a courtesy of, it's been a pleasure doing business with you. And so Solomon gives him sort of like, it's not real trash. It's just not over the top. But you have to understand, Hiram is thinking it's going to be next level. And he's like, what's this? This is trash. What Solomon did was gave him a moderate gift. And Hiram had already prepared to give him an over-the-top gift. $366 million for doing business? Thanks a lot, man, after all that you've done for me. And Hiram is the one who has given way more to Solomon than Solomon ever gave to Hiram. And it's an interesting concept. So there's a few things at play. One, it could be argued that Solomon is just straight up a shrewd businessman, which shrewd is really a kind word for me, like a cheapskate or ripoff, right? So I don't want to use that about Solomon. I think there's actually something more beneficial for us to consider. What Solomon is doing in this move, as far as I'm concerned, is he's not giving in to social pressure in the manipulation of a gift. He's breaking a stereotype. Now, if you wanted to watch a funny teaching on this, Michael Jr., who is a comedian, I love that I saw at least one pen write this down because this is worth your time. If you are not in a good place mentally sometimes, you just need to put on a good Christian comedian. And there's so few, it's easy to recommend them, right? Tim Hawkins, Michael Jr. And Michael Jr. he's actually an incredible teacher as well as a comedian. And he does a whole joke skit teaching on this very principle of regifting or gifting or receiving a blessing. And so one of the jokes that I can still remember is, when you go through the drive-thru and the person's like, don't worry about it, your coffee is free and all your food, the person ahead paid for you. Like, oh, cool, thanks. Do you want to pay for the person behind you? And he's like, no. And they're like, hold on. You're on like a 28-car chain right now. 28 cars ahead of you have chosen to be selfless and gift the next person in line. He's like, awesome, I'm so thankful. Have a good day. And he drives off. And we think of that person, what a rat, what a skunk, man. What is it? What are 28 of those people probably doing? Oh, someone bought for me, and oh yeah, I'll buy for someone else. It's like the social pressure of having to give on the spot because other people did it. And again, Michael Jr., I recommend it highly to you. He talks about knowing when not to just give and continue to give for no reason, but to give with a purpose and to receive a blessing. And he's basically making the case that we really mess all that up in society today. We don't know how to give. We don't know how to receive. We just operate on social pressures all the time. And so what I'm saying that for is because Solomon is sort of doing that. Oh, we're kings, we're wealthy, we've done millions and millions of dollars of business together. You think I'm going to give you something rocking? I told you I was going to give you some cities. And the guy is like, bro, this is trash. You pretty much gave me a big pile of trash. And yet, interestingly, he still sends Solomon a massive, massive amount of money. And keep this in mind. He didn't get paid first and then give him trash. He wasn't ripping him off. He was being, hey, we're going to give a moderate gift, you know? It's moderation. And the other guy's like, well, he's got that social pressure thing. I got to outgive. I got to be bigger. I got to be well, whatever you got to do, man. But if you want to send $366 million to me after I gave you trash, love you, bro. Enjoy your trash, you know? Amazing. So, for the sake of time, looking at verse 15 down to verse 23, I'll summarize for you. You can read it on your own if you want. Just describe some cities that Solomon conquers, but also that it tells us that the king of Egypt, who was the father of Solomon's bride, conquered Gezer, which is just to the west of Jerusalem. He conquered it, and he had some survivors that were Canaanites and Jebusites and all the rest, and he had them working there for him, and he ends up as a dowry giving that to Solomon. So Solomon takes that and other cities, and it tells us in verse 21 that he forces labor upon those folks. Now, we could argue that's a good financial decision, which it is, but it's also a terrible decision because as much as it makes sense, it's a bad deal in that he is doing deals with the enemy, literally. God has told Israel to push these people out of the land, get rid of them. And God says get rid of, and Solomon says get to work. No, God says get rid of them. And again, how do we end up in big disasters? Small decisions that are detrimental. And this is one of those, oh, it's not a big deal. We're doing the best for the economy. Oh, good. But we're compromising big time. And those are the decisions that God has warned him about over and over again. Now, well, we can read here. No, I should say this too. Whoa. How could I skip this? Good grief. What are you trying to do here? Listen. The three cities that are mentioned in verse 15, Hazor, Megiddo, and Gezer. So every time, I believe, without fail, that we have gone to Israel, we go to Megiddo. Strategic. Awesome place. Hazor is another site up north that we could go to, we often don't. For those of you going on this next trip, I believe it's in the docket, for what that's worth to you. We're going to Hazor, which has relevance to Joshua's time and when he conquered, and Gezer. Now again, Gezer is a little west of Jerusalem, a little north, but mostly west. Hazor is north, and Megiddo is north, but it's central. And listen, all of those are strategic cities that Solomon will build up in his time. And what's cool is when we go to Israel, we go to Megiddo, and it's the top tell that we go on is from Solomon's period, the Solomonic period we call it. And what's cool from there is you get to see his horse stables that are mentioned, and you look out over the valley of Armageddon. Megiddo is the city of the valley of Armageddon. And just so you know, by the way, Armageddon is not just a movie in the early 2000s, right? But in the end of the world was like an asteroid, if I remember correctly, right? No, Armageddon and the idea of it being the end of all things is because in the book of Revelation, the final battle of humankind will happen in the valley of Armageddon. So Armageddon has become synonymous with the end of all time, but it's really just a battlefield. Listen, it's the coolest battlefield in the world. In fact, it's not just interesting, it's unbelievable. So the first record of a war ever happening in human history, the first record, now we don't know if it's officially the first war, but the first record of a war that we have was found in Egyptian archives describing a war that happened on the battlefield in the Valley of Armageddon. Okay? The first war. This is important. First war. The most wars of any piece of land that have ever been fought on a single most piece of one real estate, Armageddon. The last war that will ever happen, so the first, the most, and the last wars that will ever happen on that piece of land right there. It's phenomenal to look at and consider all that. It's so incredible that generals have come along the way. I mean, you would probably most notably know Napoleon. He looked at that and he said, this is the world's greatest battlefield. Strategically on their trade routes and just the location and the flatness and the circumstances, he said, this is the world's battlefield. Napoleon wanted to conquer the world. This is the world's battlefield. So anyway, that's Megiddo. That's central. Go north to Hazor, or you can go to Gezer, which is west. And all of these, if you know the trade route, you got the northernmost point, which is soft. They've strengthened the north. They've strengthened the central valley. And then they've also strengthened the westernmost, which is like Joppa and the seafaring people. So in all senses, he's strengthening Israel like concrete in placing these buildings there and in these cities there ultimately. But anyway, I just didn't want to miss that. It's too fun. Anyway, verse 24 and 4 minutes. Okay. Pharaoh's daughter came up from the city of David to her house, which Solomon had built for her. Then he built Millo, which Millo is, the best they say is like a supporting terrace. A supporting terrace that is something you can see in archaeology today in Israel anyway. But it says in verse 25 that, let me just check something out real quick. She had built for the Lord. And he burned incense with them on the altar that was before the Lord. So he finished the temple. And King Solomon also built a fleet of ships at Ezion-Geber, which is near Eloth, on the shore of the Red Sea in the land of Edom. So this is far south in Israel, if you know that location. And so verse 27, Hiram sent his servants with the fleet, the seamen who knew the sea, to work with the servants of Solomon. And they went to Ophir and acquired 420 talents of gold from there and brought it to King Solomon. So Solomon, just when you think he could not get any more rich, he's one of those guys that just have 1,000 spinning saucers on all of his fingers. And he's just like, hey, why don't we go down south and mess around in the sea, see what we can come up with. Hey, get those guys from Tyre to come down and help us out. See what we can conjure up. They find themselves southernly. And we all wish we knew where Ophir was, because the modern equivalent of the amount of money we're talking about that they brought to Solomon from their digs of gold down there was $1.75 billion in today's economy. So like, hey Solomon, I know that you own pretty much everything and you don't need another Bugatti, but here's what we came up with down there, these caravans of gold. 1.75 billion. That's why gold in Solomon's time was like so common. It was like, oh, might as well make that out of gold too. That would be fun, right? And that's what Solomon did. He had so much money. It's unreal. But I want to just go back to one verse, and this is how we'll end, as a stark reminder, because the way it ends is almost misleading. Oh, wow. We conjured up $1.75 billion worth of gold. That's awesome. But don't forget what God had said, because in times that are good, I mean, can you imagine, I don't care how rich you are and how awesome Solomon was, when they ride up and they're like, hey, Solomon, so you remember how you sent us down there to like see what we could find out? He's like, yeah. He's like, we found a lot of gold. And he's like, oh, cool. Like he's probably like eating something. Oh, man, how much? They're like, a lot. Like, we haven't totally figured out, but we think it's like $2 billion worth. Isn't that when you stop eating and you're like, what? That's awesome. And like, even if you are loaded, it's just like a statement of abundance. Like, that is so incredible, man. But you know what? That's almost deceiving, because it seems like a blessing, but it's almost a curse. Because he's being overwhelmed with all this blessing. And I've said it before, I believe it. Ease and comfort is not the best thing for the human soul. I know that personally. I believe that. I believe hardships, trials, and testing is one of the best things for us in our spiritual growth. Ease and comfort. Oh, we got more money. We have more gold. It's like, awesome. It's like you're almost burned out from how easy that is, man. But if we just went back real quick to chapter 9, verse 7, in my New King James it says, if you go after false gods, I will cast you out from my sight, and Israel will be a proverb and byword among all people. Listen to what the Living Bible says, and it's so just vivid. The Living Bible says, Israel will become a joke to the nations and an example of a proverb of sudden disaster. So the deception is, hey man, we just found $2 billion worth of gold. The reality is, you better be careful, because that will mean nothing someday when people are walking by and you become a joke among the nations and an example and a proverb of the sudden disaster, right? So final exhortation is this. I wish good things for every one of us, but I just pray that we can manage the good times in life, because the good times, the high moments, those are scary places to be. I can think of Chuck Smith warning pastors. He says, listen, you don't need to worry when times are tough. You need to worry when times are good. When you've achieved, when you've accomplished, that's when you worry. Not when you struggle, not when you're fighting. So for all of us, if those days come for us, I pray that we wouldn't forsake our God and get lost in the gold and the excitement.